Indiana Sports Beat Radio, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Looks over the middle, second guesses, fires, throws. Does he make the catch in the end zone? Yes! Touchdown! Oladipo to win it.
Another one!
He got
Another
it!
one!
Oladipo!
Another one! Huge hole! He's at the 30! He's gonna go! 10, 5, touchdown! Jonathan Taylor!
Worked out by Burke. Bounces into Cody. Puts it up. Scores!
Now, from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, here's your host, Jim Coyle.
Hello, everybody, and welcome aboard Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Thursday. Dustin Schutte with me as always. Hello, Dustin Schutte.
How you doing this morning, Jim?
Cannot complain. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great.
The Tour de France.
It's become a tradition. I have to do it every Thursday now. Wear some sort of bright yellow or bright green to draw the audience in.
Well, it brightens up the day, maybe. Brightens up the day. Certainly does that. Looks like it's going to be a good day out. The weather's been fine, which I'm sure all the people participating in practice right now appreciate greatly. Chris Denari will be along with us later. We'll talk some Pacers. Is Duarte doing a fine job. Did a fine job during the summer league. Matt Taylor will be along. See what's happening with the Colts. And there's plenty of other news. Football's going along. Basketball is going along. High school sports start this weekend.
Man.
Everything's
I swear,
happening, man.
I was going to say, I swear that high school sports seem to start earlier and earlier every year. I can't believe these kids are back in school already.
Yeah, it surprises me that I said that. I'm like, because by the time the Labor Day weekend gets here, that'll be weekend 3 of high school football. Crazy. So I was like, wow. So Ace Frehley is going to play the Kentucky State or the Indiana State Fair. How about that?
Who?
I don't know why that. Ace Frehley, man. You don't know who Ace Frehley is?
I don't know Ace Frehley. Can you name me some songs? I'm terrible with artists.
I'll give you a band that he used to be in.
Okay.
Kiss!
Okay. I do know Kiss.
Yeah, there you go,
Detroit
man.
Rock City, and yeah.
Come on, golly. I thought.
I'm terrible. Well, I'm terrible with artists. Well, of course, you're wearing an AC/DC shirt right now, so you know.
Well, he also
big band guy.
No, but just know him, and of course, he used to wear a lot of makeup. So
that is true.
Yeah. Sporting my second awesome rock shirt this week. There you go. Thank you, Scott. Mike says hello from Evansville. You made Clowney's Final 5. There you go. See, he's on it. Kiss, baby. He's got it going. He knows what we're talking about. Nice shirt. Bob talking about yeah, it got me going, man. Oh, Darren's going to see Hank Williams Jr. tomorrow night in Evansville. Man, concerts. Dude, I've seen him so many times when I was younger. That was one of the concerts I saw a lot. Well, that should be fun, especially after the hiatus, a Hank Williams Jr. concert. Man, they may be kicking it off strong there.
Matt's here.
Hey, Matt. How are you, brother?
Hey, guys. What's happening?
Just talking about concerts, actually, because I've got a AC/DC shirt on, and people started talking about concerts. Somebody's going to see Hank Williams Jr. tomorrow night in Evansville, and I'm like, man, I'm thinking, I remember seeing him once in Louisville, and I was hanging out back. I was young. I was like, well, maybe I'll see him because the bus was there. The thing I remember is someone pulling out a gigantic 55-gallon, dragging a 55-gallon trash bag that was just stuffed nothing but ice and beer and carrying that over that tour bus. Swear that's the memory that I have, man. Donald Sang says, happy heavenly birthday to Coach Hepp. So there you go. You can add that in there. But how's everything going with you, Matt?
Going good. I mean, it's just, we're at the point of Colts training camp here where, the days are kind of running together. You don't know what day of the week it is. You just know where you're supposed to be that day, if that makes any sense. I'm sure you guys can relate to that. Yeah, the grind has fully set in, although I do know today is the last day of practice for the week, and then the Colts have a day off tomorrow, a travel day built in, and then they'll take on the Minnesota Vikings on Saturday night for their second preseason game and try and build off what they did well in the first preseason game last Sunday. And then in 6 days from there, you're going to play the third game. So you got 3 games in 12 days. And then with this year being the first year of the new schedule format, if you will, the Colts are going to have, every team's going to have 15 days between the end of the preseason and the regular season. So they got to make cuts, and then they'll have some time to sort of fine tune some things and have that extra time to get ready for week 1. And for the Colts, that's the Seattle Seahawks. So it's crazy that we're nearing the end of August, but we still got a little ways to go. So in some respects, it feels like we're still far away from the regular season, but it's going to be here before you know it. You guys know how that goes.
I was listening to a show yesterday. I don't remember what it was. It was on, ESPN or something like that. And those guys were debating the fact of even the need to have all these preseason games. He says, man, all these guys played in college. None of them had preseason games. And it's true. And the thought of getting hurt. So there's some people are torn between the preseason games in the NFL. And I know it's a moneymaker for them too. So that's probably the biggest thing. But I know they do get some things done, but there's also the fear of injury because the quarterbacks are not, they're just going to barely play. What do you, should they lower the amount of preseason games? Are they needed? Or maybe just do cross exhibitions or something? But any change there you think, see coming?
Obviously, professional football is the most controversial preseason slate because, you have season ticket members that, have to pay for the tickets, and the owners obviously want the games because they're a revenue source. The coaches and the general managers, to a degree, want the games because it's a good way to evaluate the back end of your roster and get those guys some playing time that you normally wouldn't get when the lights are on, and get them some film and have a chance for those guys to really showcase what they can do in a game-like setting. And to your point, with the NFL moving from 16 games to a 17-game regular season, you're still playing 20 games total for the year, but you're going from 4 preseason games down to 3. And so it's one of those things you're always going to have to balance. The players hate it, especially the frontline players. I mean, if you look at the Colts, DeForest Buckner, Darius Leonard, Jonathan Taylor, like these guys, they never need to see a preseason game again for the rest of their careers. So, yeah, every year you're going to look at guys and say, man, this number 2 or this fringe starter tears his ACL in the first game or the second game. And you ask yourself, why? Why do we need these? So, you need them to a degree, but you also don't need them, which, again, makes it a very polarizing topic. But as long as, people watch, quite frankly, and as long as numbers are good in terms of television ratings and radio ratings, they're going to exist because they make money. And so if people gripe about them, fans, that is, just look internally because unfortunately fans sort of drive the existence of preseason games. But, we're seeing more and more teams hold out their starters because of the fear of injury, because you want guys available for the start of the regular season. And that's why you're seeing joint practice, like we saw last week with the Colts and Carolina Panthers. They came in here and they practiced on Thursday and Friday ahead of a game on Sunday, and they got in some good work. And that's where guys like DeForest Buckner and Darius Leonard really fine-tune their skills and go up against other starters in a controlled environment to fine-tune themselves for the regular season. So it's always, as long as preseason is around, we're always going to debate this. We're always going to talk about it. And every year, once we get to the end of the preseason, we always say, man, we don't have to talk about this for another year. And we just sort of put it off because we're just always so relieved and so excited for the start of the regular season. So all these exhibition games are sort of in the rearview mirror.
And one of the things, Matt, I wanted to address to you, it's everybody's favorite topic, right, is officiating. And I think this was a moment that went viral in the Colts' first preseason game, and I'm not going to remember the running back, but was basically plowing through a field of defenders and flexed a little bit and got flagged for taunting. And then we consistently see penalty flags thrown for hitting the quarterback when sometimes it seems like it's just part of the play. It doesn't seem like it's anything excessive. In your mind, do you think the NFL has gone too far with some of these penalties? I mean, I know player safety is at the forefront and has been for a while now, but I feel like some of it is taking the fun out of the game almost a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't actually. I think the rules are put in place and they make sense. At least they do on paper. What you're trying to do as far as the taunting penalties are concerned, you're trying to eliminate what you saw in the Super Bowl last year. And I'm gonna forget the wide receiver for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, but he's basically flexing and mocking Tyreek Hill in the Super Bowl. Like that. That's what you don't want. You don't want, the spirit of the game to get degraded. You don't want guys going out of their way to make fun of other people and to put people down. And so I understand it from that standpoint. But yeah, it was Benny LeMay, the running back that you're talking about. He's a second-year running back for the Colts out of Charlotte, and he ripped off an unbelievable run. You just described it. He's taken 7 or 8 different tacklers with him. I mean, he gets like 10 yards after contact, and he gets up and he's excited. He's trying to make the roster, right? He's the fringe bubble guy, and he's trying to make a splash. And so he does just that. So he's excited about it. He gets up off the pile, sort of pounds his chest a little bit. I don't know what he was said. I'm 7 stories up, so I don't hear stuff like that. But he said something or did something, and it wasn't in relation to the other team. He was just excited about his performance and what he just did, and he got flagged for a taunting penalty. And so in the preseason, you always have points of emphasis. You always have things that the refs are going to be sort of looking at and trying to feel out on how we're going to call things. And so in the preseason, you always have flags for things that you normally wouldn't have in the regular season. So I kind of classify it as that. But what you don't want is for the NFL to become, watered down. You want to take the personality away from these guys. We always hear about the no fun league, the NFL. And so I just think it was one of those things where he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. First game of the season for the refs in the preseason, and they're going to be watching out for points of emphasis. And so somebody threw the flag thinking, okay, this kind of is in the ballpark of taunting. In the regular season, I don't think that would warrant a flag. But I understand why they put the rule in, because it kind of all stems from how the Super Bowl got out of hand from a sportsmanship standpoint.
And I guess to follow up on that, when you just described it, it makes a little bit more sense too. I'm guessing the NFL maybe puts a little bit heavier emphasis on the taunting for these preseason games, because the last thing you really want is some sort of big scrum or fight and you see multiple players injured, or give the league a bit of a black eye heading into the season before you've played any games. So that's an interesting perspective that I really wasn't aware of.
Yeah, I mean, what you're trying to do is just kind of like set the tone for the season. Right. You want to say, okay, these are the things we're focusing on heading into the regular season. These are the things we want to clean up. I mean, chop blocking and where you can cut guys in relation to the play. That is a big point of emphasis this year as well. And so you're just throwing flags. Again, when they're in the kind of in the neighborhood of where these penalties would come, so that players and coaches have it top of mind saying, hey, in the regular season, we're going to be watching out for these things. And so, you just can't forget about them. We're warning you right now. We're telling you right now that if you do this in a regular season, this might draw a flag. And so, again, the preseason, they're always going to be a little bit more stringent on these things. And then the regular season, they're hoping it kind of irons itself out.
Well, Matt, I know you don't have a lot of time this morning. We'll let you get going. But what are you looking forward to for the rest of the week?
Yeah, I mean, coming up on Saturday in the preseason game, I'm just excited to see what the quarterback play is. Jacob Eason and Sam Ehlinger are in this dual quarterback competition right now to see who's, the primary backup behind Carson Wentz, or possibly play week 1 of the regular season in case Wentz can't go with his foot injury. So it's just the storyline up here that's dominating things. And Sam Ehlinger is going to start the game. That's the plan. He's going to run with the first team offense, and the starters are going to play, or at least some of the starters. Most of the starters are going to play some in this game coming up on Saturday. And so he's going to get the run with those guys, whereas Jacob Eason didn't get that opportunity last game. He started the game, but it was with the 2s and the 3s in the first half. So I think that they need to have Jacob Eason and Sam Ehlinger play at least some with the first team offense on Saturday night. But I don't know if that's the plan. It might be sort of inverse of what they had last time out, where Ellinger gets the start, Eason plays the second half, and that was the opposite last game where Eason started the game, Ellinger played the second half. But as we all know, quarterback competitions, all competitions in sports, they're not created equal, so you have to kind of go by the evaluation. You have to go by, the totality of what you've seen in camp in the preseason games when it's all said and done. But to this point, Jacob Eason looks way more comfortable now than he did 2 weeks ago at the start of the camp. And that's not a slight on Sam Ellinger. It's just a compliment to Eason in terms of his development, his growth, and his confidence that he's picked up these last couple of weeks.
Well, we're certainly following, keeping eyes on that this weekend. We appreciate you as always, brother. Have a great one.
All right, guys. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Matt Taylor from the Indianapolis Coach joining us. We've got Chris Denari coming up next. Let's take a quick break so we can get him in here. We're back with more on Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this. Hey, Hoosier fans, whether you're looking for a new or a used vehicle.
What's
hey,
up,
Chris,
guys?
how are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
Hey, Chris.
Cannot complain. Nobody wants to listen to me.
Hey, and we got a little rain yesterday. That was nice.
Hey. I don't know that I got any here.
Yeah, we finally got some. It was at least significant.
Definitely did not get significant rainfall here. If it happened, it was without my knowledge. Dustin, I got a great idea.
Yeah?
You should get a colonoscopy, and we'll do that live on the air.
Yeah. That'd be fun.
Chick McGee did that from Bob and Tom several years ago.
Yeah, that's right. He did.
We are not going to, make sure to turn the camera off for that one.
God. Yeah. Oh,
My second one. I mean, really, they put you out and you wake up. I mean, it's just,
that's how I'd have to have it.
Yep. That's my second one. I had one 5 years ago.
How's everything else going, sir?
Good. No complaints.
Have you ever played that course?
Heartland Crossing? Yes. I haven't played it for played it for a long time though. It's south of Decatur Central High School. Years ago, I used to know the pro there, but I probably haven't played it in 20 years, maybe.
Heard they have a ton of sand bunkers.
Yeah, it's sort of. It reminds me a little bit. Have you ever up here in Noblesville played Purgatory?
I've heard about it.
Oh man, it's got bunkers everywhere.
I've heard about it.
I mean, it's got way too many bunkers.
Man,
they have bunkers just to have bunkers.
Yeah, bunkers on top of bunkers, bunker in a bunker.
Yeah, the guy that owns that course, I worked with in the when we both worked at Pebblebrook in Noblesville when we were in college. His son is the really good golfer at IU.
Oh wow.
Okay, 15 seconds coming back in.
And on 86th Street in Indy, have a long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Sam's Family of Restaurants. Fresh, local, family. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio on this Thursday. Dustin Schutte sitting in with us, as always, from Saturday Tradition. And now we're joined by Chris Denari from the Pacers. Trying to think of a name of the kid that plays on the IU golf team whose father is a pro, there's Yukubov or Shepard that are
Merchant. Yeah.
Yeah, I hadn't gotten to that name. Clay Merchant. He's a freshman. He's a freshman on the IU golf team.
Yeah, he was an outstanding golfer at Noblesville. And he originally committed to Florida, but he's put up some big numbers. He was a freshman last year at IU. He'll be a sophomore. He's a really good golfer. His dad is in the golf business, owns Purgatory up here in Noblesville. And Mike and I worked mowing greens and fairways and changing cups and all that kind of stuff back in the day at Pebblebrook in Noblesville. So, yeah, Clay's really good. I have a story. Back in 2012, we were playing Orlando in the playoffs, and Mike also has a place down in Orlando. And he said, hey, why don't, you've got an off day. Why don't you get a group and we'll go out and play? And so Austin Crozier, myself, a bunch of us played, and we played with Mike and Clay. So put it this way, Clay was probably 13 years old, and I think he shot like a 75.
Man.
There's nothing like getting your ass kicked by a kid.
So I think we all knew at that point Clay Merchant was going to be a pretty good golfer, and it's great to see him down at IU with the new course and with the new facility there, what they have. So, yeah, hats off to Clay. I know he'll have a great year.
Absolutely looking forward to that. How are things going with the Pacers right now as trying to weed into the season?
Yeah, it was good.
I know we came off of the Summer League. Duarte looked really good during that whole run.
Oh, he did. He averaged 18 points a game, shot it well, looked every bit what I think everybody hoped he would be. And then Isaiah Jackson, the 19-year-old out of Kentucky, in his final game, he had 7 block shots. So, I thought those two guys played very well. They won their last 3 games. Duarte did not play in the 5th and final game. They opted to hold him out, but the Pacers played really well. It was just good to see. Just like, seeing IU down in the Bahamas, August can be a very important time, especially for young players. And that's what you saw during Summer League. There were a lot of standouts. Everyone wanted to see what Cade Cunningham would do with Detroit with all those lottery picks. So it was a lot of fun. I think the TV ratings, I saw the TV ratings here in Indianapolis for the Summer League games on NBA TV and ESPN and ESPN2, and they were really good. So I think, people are in that mode right before the college football and the NFL season starts to keep tabs on basketball, and Summer League was a great way to do it.
Yeah, and you had Romeo and the Celtics. They went 4-1. Also during that run. So you've got a lot of interest, I'm sure, for Romeo Langford. But the Pacers with the 3-2, very positive sign. Go ahead, Dustin. Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, because of, with the Big Ten football and college football starting up, I wasn't able to keep tabs on Summer League as well as I usually do. But so after the draft, there was a lot of criticism about the Pacers draft choices with Duarte and Jackson. But this is why I like to do the wait and see, because I think if you would have told, this is exactly what you wanted to see. I think the Pacers needed to add some shooting and they needed to add some athleticism. Yeah. And I understand it's Summer League and we don't know what kind of roles those two guys are going to have on the roster. But I'm optimistic about this draft. I think that they're going to fit into the pieces they already have in Indianapolis. And we've talked about it like I'm a broken record, because I think that the Pacers have a really good group of guys there. You just might have to change a few pieces. But I think that those two, when you add shooting and athleticism, you're always going to need those two things. It doesn't hurt to have more of that on your bench.
No, and I think, what has happened is you lost Doug McDermott. And I think if the Pacers could have, they would have loved to have had him back, but not at the price that San Antonio was willing to pay. And that's great for Doug. He definitely deserves it and earned it. But now you're able to get a guy in Duarte who you control for basically 4 years and add 2 to 3 years to that. So you can have Chris Duarte for sure for the next 7 years, right in the prime of his career. And you're right. He shoots the ball very well. I look at somebody like Isaiah Jackson. You're probably not going to have Jakar Sampson back, right? Can Isaiah Jackson come in and fit into the role that we saw Jakar Sampson play last year? Some spot duty. You may have to play more minutes if you have some injuries. Again, he's young, but he's only 19 years old. And again, he's a guy you have at a very favorable contract. You have him under your team control for a number of years, and you have a chance to develop him over time. So I agree with you, Dustin. I mean, there's so much reaction on draft night. You know, people have their favorites, and people think that they believe what they want to believe. But I do believe that what you saw actually happen on the basketball floor in Las Vegas helped tell a lot of people that I think the Pacers did a really good job with their 2 draft picks.
And I've been curious about this too. A lot has been made about Duarte's age. I think he's 24. But I feel like the Pacers valued that. I feel like when they go with the first round draft pick, they want to get somebody in there that was mature, that would kind of fit into that locker room rather than a 19-year-old. And then I looked at the addition of Isaiah Jackson, and I almost view that as like a Lance Stevenson type pick. And I know that we're talking different positions here, but when they drafted Lance, I remember Larry Bird saying he was the most talented player on the roster. He just wasn't very developed. I don't know that Isaiah Jackson is going to be the most talented player on the roster, but I feel like when you have that kind of athleticism in today's NBA, if you can develop that, he can be a really good piece off the bench.
Yeah, and you know, just look at a pure number standpoint. 7 block shots in a summer league game, that ties for the most ever. And I think that says something. Again, we're looking at numbers, we're looking at analytics, but that was performance on the floor. So I agree with you. I mean, I think back to when they drafted Lance in the 2nd round, it took him some time to develop, but he became a starter on a very good team, a team that went to the Eastern Conference Finals twice. So I think you're spot on about somebody like Isaiah Jackson. And I think so much was made about Duarte's age. I mean, he didn't really start playing basketball until he was 16 or 17 when he left the Dominican Republic to come to the United States. I just think you get somebody who is ready to help right now. Yeah. And I think for what the Pacers have, for bringing Rick Carlisle in, this is a team that does not want to take another step back. They're not in the rebuilding mode. I would view it more as reloading with the current personnel that they have, some additions that they have made. Maybe they'll make some more before training camp starts in September. But a team that is looking to push forward, and they felt like Chris Duarte was the best player to help them do that.
And I'm gonna shift gears a little bit here. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut Jim off, but I wanted to shift gears just a little bit because it's been out about a week now. Have you had the opportunity to watch the Malice in the Palace documentary on Netflix yet?
Yeah, I have watched it, and you know, I think for me to hear from those guys in a different environment than maybe what we've heard from them over the past, and also. Really to hear from Reggie and what Reggie, how that whole experience really impacted him and actually took away an opportunity. I mean, that was a team that all intents and purposes had a great shot to if not win an NBA title, contend for an NBA title. So yeah, very interesting documentary that Netflix and J.O. and Jackson and those guys have put together, but a lot of interesting sort of new information that maybe you didn't know about years ago.
Yeah, I mean, Jermaine O'Neal really took a hit on that, and I think we talked about that before, but I didn't realize it back then. That so there's people everybody. I'm not going to say everybody, but a lot of people prejudged a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Without having the information. And I was probably one of those because you're given the information you're given. And that's what you make, you develop your processes on. And a lot of information came out and it was a lot different. Oh my gosh. I know that the blame goes on the players, but I put a ton of blame on elsewhere. Police and the Pistons and the lack of security and unbelievable and the officials.
Yeah.
So there was so much to go around. That could have never happened And of course, the dude that threw the stupid cup, he should have got punched in the face, who seemed to be the most, he seemed to care the least of anybody. He really could. He was almost happy that he caught that. He needed to be punched in the face, man. Just a jackleg.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. If that doesn't happen, if that cup is not tossed, then there's no issues, right? I mean, nothing is going to happen, and it shows you that one thing, one, I don't even want to call it a minor thing, because throwing a cup at a game is not a minor thing, but one thing that happens in a split second can change the trajectory of a franchise, of individuals, just like that is everlasting, right? Or that lasts for, I mean, it impacted the Pacers franchise, for a good, 8 to 10 years.
And not only that, that was probably a championship season.
Yes. So that split second decision by that person altered the present and the future for not just a franchise, but for individuals as well.
Absolutely. What else is coming up new with you, man?
Not a lot. I mean, last week, I think I talked to you last week. I did the 3 races at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the IMS radio.
Hey, I want to talk about that, because the great ending, or the controversial ending with the guy right here from right below us, Chase Briscoe, was in position to get a win at Indy. My God, how incredible that was.
Yeah, the one thing you can't do, and they go over it with the drivers, and it was too bad for Chase, is in that one of the final restarts, or the final restart, he got pushed into the grass. And so he basically cut a couple of corners and then came out with the leader. And then he pushed Denny Hamlin right in front of me, basically. And then, they put him in a penalty situation. And so that was unfortunate, because remember, Chase Briscoe won the Xfinity race last year, and he would have had a chance in back-to-back years to win on the road course at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. But it was too bad with the way the race ended, from the standpoint that, they had to fix all the curbing and the rumble strips that they had brought up, because I thought up until that point, it was a pretty entertaining and interesting racing. I thought there was a lot of side-by-side, much more than you see on the oval. I would assume that the Cup cars will come back at least for another year on the road course. There are some of the drivers were not happy. They wanted to race on the oval. But I think they'll come back and give it another try, at least on the road course, and see how it works out in 2022.
I think it's a better race.
I agree.
It's the best, to me. It's the best Brickyard race they've had, unless I had to go back to the very beginnings of it. But since it's gotten its newness away, it created excitement. It created passing. It was a much better race. But those bumper, the rumble strips or whatever, the one in the Xfinity race, my God, that they first took off, was across the one area where they just jacked cars up. Those things are made out of steel. I didn't realize that.
Well, and what's interesting is, they didn't have any issues with the Indy cars, but the Indy cars are a lot lighter, right, than the Xfinity and the Cup cars. And so I guess a lot of that weight that went across them, and, what their hope is that the drivers would stay off those rumble strips in some areas. But those guys are looking for every advantage they have, right? And if they can cut a foot off a turn, they're going to cut a foot off a turn. And so you had so many of those guys going over the rumble strips, and then when those rumble strips elevate, they get into the underneath of the car, and then that creates all kinds of problems.
How fun was it for that race?
It was fun. I mean, I was out there a long time. On Saturday, we did the IndyCar race at 12:30, and then the Xfinity race at 4. So I was probably out in the turn for 6.5 hours. And then Sunday would have been a little shorter, guys. I looked at my watch. Green flag was at 1:15, and it was like 3:30, and I said, "Wow, we're going to get done pretty quick here." And the next thing I knew it, I'm out there until 5:15. It's the old story. It's like basketball. if the game is close, never think or utter the word overtime, because that probably will happen. And so I got penalized for looking at my watch and in my head thinking, this race is almost over. And it wasn't.
Oh, man. But it was a fun one. Man, I cannot thank you as always. I know you got to get out of here as well. And we'll let you get going for the day.
All right.
But thank you so much, brother. Have a great week and a good weekend, Chris.
All right. See you guys.
Chris Denari joining us from the Indiana Pacers here on Indiana Sports Beat Radio. More coming up. We'll be back with it right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for
if you get forced into the grass, I think you should not be penalized.
I agree, but I guess it just depends on what whoever made the rule or made the ruling, what they perceive it as. Was he forced in there or did he go in there on his own?
Well, he was pretty much forced in there, but
I'm going to use the restroom real quick.
TMI. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Oh, no.
Y'all going to talk about Scott Frosty the Snowman?
Oh, yeah. We probably should.
Oh, yeah. Probably should. I've been saying that, baby.
I'm going to tell you. Well, I'll just save it for the show because I'm going to have a very different take on that.
Uh-oh. Hey, Dustin, RBO or Ross Bunnell, he read your article on Saturday Tradition.
In a 3-3 scenario, you're on probation. No, okay, well, that's fair.
All right, we're coming back.
Front-wheel drive lease for just $180 a month, or a new 2021 Honda Accord LX front-wheel drive lease for just $270 a month. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back. It's Thursday. Dustin Schutte's with me. And man, oh man, I've been waiting to talk about this. Your old friend Scott Frost at Nebraska. He's in a little hot water. I don't know if he'll get fired over this. I know he should get fired over this. I think that the new athletic, oh my God, he lied to the school. He was as deceptive as anything. And this is disingenuous as it comes. He put players in danger. He went against health protocols. He has broken every rule that was placed before him in doing what he did. And he's a jackass. stands up there at Big Ten Media Days and said, I don't need slogans and I don't need gimmicks, but what I need to do is cheat and do what everybody else can't do. He should have said that.
Okay, well, let's dissect this a little bit because I don't know when. Here's what I don't know. I don't know the specifics of all the specifics that have come out since then. I played a little golf yesterday, relaxed a little bit. So after all that came out, I don't know what has been reported on since. I don't know what the health and safety protocols were in the state of Nebraska at the time.
Well, let's start with the first time you're not allowed to go off campus to do anything. Let's start with that.
Okay, so we'll start. So this is where I'm going to go with this. I'm not saying it having extra assistants and analysts and those kind of people at practice. I'm not saying that isn't a punishable offense. What I'm going to say is we're making a bigger deal out of these two things, these what I would consider to be minor things, as opposed to what you look at LSU. You had a booster who stole money from a hospital and provided it to a player's parents. You had Odell Beckham Jr. handing out cash after the national championship game to current players. And then LSU lied about it, saying it's fake money, because apparently Odell Beckham Jr. walks around with fake money. You've had numerous, I think over half a dozen sexual harassment or domestic violence situations alleged under head coach Ed Orgeron. You had all that mess with Les Miles. And LSU hasn't received one punishment from that. And we're talking about,
yeah.
But so this is why it gets, to me, it's so blown out of proportion. I want to know the specifics about everything that happened. Again, I'm not saying that this gives Scott Frost a pass. And the problem with, here's the thing. If Nebraska was 10-2 every year and competing in the Big Ten championship game, if they were Northwestern basically right now, I don't think this is a story. It's a slap on the wrist. He's going to get a 3-game suspension, and we move on with our lives.
I don't care about the analysts and stuff. I mean, that's just trying to get an advantage. Okay, I'm like, yeah, slap him on the wrist for that. I don't care. I'm talking about taking team and equipment and personnel off campus to an undisclosed location purposely to keep it unbeknownst to his own school, to his own athletics department. That is what I'm talking about. That's a whole different scenario, baby. And that is what has happened here. Yeah, I'm not talking about the analyst stuff. I'm like, yeah, whatever. That's just trying to get an advantage. That's cool. I'm talking about this. He's a cheater. He knew it was against the rules, and he did it. And he's calling people out for having gimmicks and slogans. And this guy is cheating. Cheating.
Here's my question though. Okay, I'm gonna stay out of the pandemic stuff because if different states had different protocols and those players willingly volunteered to do this stuff, I'm not making a judgment here. But what I'm gonna say is this: do you think the school really didn't know, or do you think there was some point of contact and they said you can do what you need to do, but we cannot know about it? I think that's
might have known about it because he resigned.
Well, this is what I'm saying though. I think I'm not saying that there's culpability. I don't know who's culpable here, but what I'm going to say is
Scott Frost.
Is it going to say? But are you saying we want to do this, and the University of Nebraska, the higher ups, whatever board of trust, whatever, whoever is in charge, the AD, the president, okay, you can do what you need to do, but we can't know about it. So you just do what you need to do. I find it hard to believe that you would not know about the school like Nebraska, where all eyes are on the program. Nobody in the media knew. Nobody at the school knew about it. I find that very difficult to believe. They're the only game in town. I mean, people know when Scott Frost goes to the bathroom in that state. I find it hard to believe that the school didn't know about that. That's just my opinion.
I'm not disagreeing with some of what you say because it's kind of hard to move a company, basically. And
he pulled the Baltimore Colts. Pulled a Baltimore Colts.
Actually, I said that yesterday. I said it's not like they're pulling away in some Mayflower vans, but it comes back to Scott Frost. He's the guy who orchestrated this, and he's the guy
who is in such trouble that he has to resort to this because he's not getting it done at Nebraska. Nebraska has not improved under his tenure, and he knows that. And his ass is on a hot seat, so he's doing whatever it takes. That includes to cheat now. He has his time there has not gone smoothly. It's been one thing after another. He gets in and says some things about Indiana and then gets his butt kicked at home by Indiana. He says the stuff that he said this year at Big Ten Media Days. Just stop running your mouth. He needs to just shut his mouth and worry about his team and quit cheating. And maybe he'll get a little bit further along. But Nebraska as a whole, what the hell does the Big Ten need Nebraska for? What have they brought to the Big Ten? Zero. And they bring nothing to this conference. No TV market, no competitive sports. The basketball program sucks. The football program is nothing. What does Nebraska bring to the Big Ten? They're no longer in the AAU thing, American Academics Union. They're the only school in the Big Ten that's no longer in that after getting kicked out of that. What does Nebraska bring? Why are they even in the Big Ten?
Well, in my opinion, they do have one of the largest fan bases in the sport. I mean, I don't know what that means in terms of television. When you look at the state of Nebraska, obviously, and you're talking about television,
that helps Nebraska in the stadium. That doesn't help TV.
It's not quite there, but they do have what they have is a broad-reaching. I mean, they're coast to coast.
Back in the day, they were, yeah.
They still are. I'm telling you. I have gotten this is from a personal standpoint. I've gotten to know through my work that Nebraska football still means a ton to a lot of people.
Oh,
so I do think, but this is what I'm gonna say, because I think that I don't know the television market in the state of obviously that's not going to be great. However, I think, why do you think the Big Ten has scheduled Nebraska, Ohio State every year? Because those are two premier programs, and that's going to draw in attention. Even if Nebraska's not good, there's still that brand recognition. Nebraska still has a brand. It's like Miami. It brings in television numbers. They're going to play Michigan State. That's going to be a big time game, even though Miami should be a top 10, top 15 team. But that's still going to bring in, when you establish that brand recognition, that draws in eyeballs. So I don't think Nebraska hasn't brought anything, but I understand the point that they have not been as successful and that they have not been that football power that everybody thought that they were going to be in the Big Ten. They've been far from that. There's no doubt that their performance on the field has been subpar, basically since they fired Bo Pelini. I mean, that's the one thing that I'm not going to say I never understood it, but he never won fewer than 9 games. And it's like, that's a damn hard thing to accomplish. And now look,
they haven't won anything close to that since they fired him.
I think they've had one 9-win season or 10-win season under Mike Riley, and that was it. That's it. So it's not always the grass is always greener.
Yeah, my favorite comment from Glenn. Scott Frost is the Willie Taggart of the Big Ten. And he would know Willie Taggart made a stop at Florida State. But Willie Taggart has made a living off of doing nothing. He has gone from Western Kentucky and on to, after that, from one big job to another without doing a single thing. And now he's just counting money. Reminds me of a basketball coach.
A basketball coach, yeah.
Yeah, just comes to mind. I can't quite think
the Golden Arches.
Yeah, Golden Arches, all right. But yeah, I don't think Nebraska brings anything to the Big Ten. Yeah, they got a nice a brand in football from the old days, but I don't know how much that's carrying over anymore. I don't think anybody cares when Nebraska is playing Illinois or whomever they're playing in the West. They just, because they're not good. It's not a good product. And then Scott Frost is making it look worse. He is putting a tarnish. Okay, well, if they've still have a nice brand, he's starting to put a tarnish on that. He just seems kind of a jackass, to be honest with you, running his mouth all the time. I don't mind somebody that runs their mouth. I don't have a problem with that at all. But you got to back it up. Right. You got to be winning. You can't be 4 and whatever
and running your mouth every year, and then you get caught cheating on top of it. Brother, he's just, I don't know that, I honestly don't know that he survives this. They've got a new AD, and the last thing a new athletics director wants to do is deal with a football problem on what is your biggest product. And football is Nebraska's biggest product, even though it's not good. They still do fill the stands, so that's important to them. They still get the Big Ten money because it's an equal split. So it all works out well for them, but they've got to keep a good program on the field. And Scott Frost does not seem to be trending that program in the right direction. How many guys have transferred out of there in the last year or so to other programs that were some of their top players? I mean, there's more bad things going on with Nebraska football than good. I can't think what's good that's going on with Nebraska football.
Well, I think a lot of it is going to be based on what happens this season. And to your point, this is where I go back to if Nebraska was winning 9 or 10 games every year, this stuff that we're talking about with Scott Frost is no big deal. Like I said, slap on the wrist. He might get suspended a few games, and then it's a done deal. It's over with. Nobody cares anymore. But when you have it just is compounded by the fact that you're 12-20 over your first 3 seasons. And there's a lot of expectation. Like I do think that there's still faith from the Nebraska fan base in Scott Frost, but that's going to change like that if they don't win this season. You've got to get at least to a bowl game. And again, this is why I put so much emphasis on this Nebraska-Illinois game, because if Nebraska doesn't beat Illinois, it's awfully hard to see me get them getting the 6 wins, because they have Oklahoma, they have Ohio State, they have Michigan, Minnesota, Iowa, Wisconsin, all on the schedule. That's 7 teams that I would say 4 or 5 of those, it's at least a coin flip at best. So you have to win that first game.
Yeah, but it even goes beyond that, because Illinois is a team you cannot lose to, because they should be much further behind in you, because they just fired their coach for the very reason. So they've got a new coach, even though it's Brett Bielema. It doesn't matter. It's in his first season. You lose to a coach that's in his first season, and you're in your – how long has Frost been there now? 4?
This will be his 4th, yeah. 4th.
So you're in your 4th season. You're supposed to have things starting to come around.
Right.
He seems like he's in his first season there still. And so if you lose to Illinois, baby, on top of what's going on right now, it's just going to get that hill, rock is going to continue to roll downhill, I think.
Right. Well, and what's been interesting, and I'm not going to make I don't want to make an assumption here, but there's also this. Look at what happened at Tennessee with Jeremy Pruitt, and what happened. Look at Scott Frost's buyout. It's $20 million if he's fired without cause.
Oh, and well, we already have cause.
But that's what I'm saying. This trickles out this week. They could use that potentially as cause and get out of that buyout situation. Well, or they could do something where they split, they come to some sort of agreement. So I don't know what the situation is. I don't know if that's why that story leaked, but it does set the precedent that if we get off to a bad start, if we lose you're going to wait till at some point in the season. But let's say that Illinois or Nebraska somehow gets off to a 2-4 start or a 3, if they get a losing record, who's to say that you're not going to see a change midway through the season, as you said, with a new athletic director, with these new NCAA investigation going on? I mean, again, I don't know the inner workings. I don't want to assume, but it is a very interesting situation, because this is exactly what happened. Now, obviously, Tennessee was cheating in a much larger degree in the recruiting situation, but it's a similar scenario. And so you can't help but think and have that thought go through your mind when this kind of thing pops up. What we're talking about 10 days before the start of the season, before Nebraska kicks the season off against Illinois.
Yeah, we got to take a break. John, can you throw up that flyer for me? Playing in the there you go. Tomorrow, you guys interested, if you're available, the Metropolitan Indianapolis Board of Realtors is having their 2021 Golf Scramble outing at the Links at Heartland Crossing Golf Course. Here's all of the information right there. We can get that out later. It's only $75 a golfer, but it's going to charity for Monroe and Morgan County there. So sign up right there. You can see the URL at the bottom. We'll get that back up. If anybody is interested, anybody wants to play, I'll be there. Bob Kravitz is going to be there. So going to be playing, probably going to do the show there tomorrow. As a matter of fact, I have to be able to play. So there you go. Hey, we'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans. Who's on next? John?
Nobody.
Oh, I thought you had someone.
Nobody.
No,
I
texted you last night saying that because we had to move up Matt and Chris, we didn't have anybody in the back half of the show.
So if you need more content, I did do my my 5 bold predictions on Indiana. I ran that yesterday.
There you go.
Oh. Is that the one that had the 3-3 scenario?
It is.
I said the Hoosiers, the bold predict. Now these are bold predictions. This is not what is going to happen.
I like your Donovan McCulley one.
Well, I thought that was, I was searching for a 5th, and I thought that was a good one because we had just talked about it. But I put on there the Hoosiers are closer to 3-3 than they are 6-0 when they play Ohio State. That's all I said.
Yeah, that's a good topic. That's a good topic.
Hey, at 10:40, I could probably get Matt from football practice.
Taylor or Matt Byrne? Matt Byrne.
Yes.
I was like, why would you go back to Matt Taylor when we just had it? Yeah, just let me know when he's ready, or if you can get him, I'll send him the link.
We'll send him the link.
All right.
Grace Rayner.
Have you reached out to him yet, or is he going to be confused on why I'm sending him the link?
Send him the link.
Good for her.
Oh, okay.
He will not be confused.
He will not be confused. I'm going to pull up the Indiana schedule here too.
Yeah, I know the first half part of it, but
no, you don't, because you always say Indiana will be 7-0 going into Ohio State when they can only be 6-0.
No, I said 6. I never said 7. I never
yes,
said
you
7-0.
Yes,
I've never said 7-0. 6.
Indiana will be 12-0 when Ohio State comes to town.
I never said that. You find it, play it, find it, and play it, and prove me wrong.
We've talked about this off the air several times.
Find it.
We're coming back in.
Links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink.
Where are we at here?
This segment is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back. Indiana Sports Beat coming to you here on this Thursday. Looks like it's going to be a nice day out there. I haven't even checked the forecast, but I see clear skies. I hope it's that way wherever you are. 72 degrees right now. That's lovely. That's Chamber of Commerce weather, man. Going to be, just low 80s. Hello. That's what you like to see. Dustin Schutte got the bold predictions for Indiana football out in Saturday Tradition. What's your boldest prediction?
Well, my boldest prediction, I think that so doing my research, I found out that no Indiana defensive player has ever won a major Big Ten award. That's not meaning all Big Ten. That means they've never been a linebacker of the year, defensive lineman of the year, defensive player of the year, defensive back of the year. I think that somebody on Indiana's team breaks that trend this year. I think that they'll have a player who is the linebacker Probably not defensive lineman. I don't think that they'll have a defensive lineman of the year, but
Well,
I think
Michael
either
McFadden was All-American last year.
I think Micah McFadden could be the linebacker of the year. I think a guy like Tywan Mullen or Jalen Williams, I think one of those two guys could be defensive back of the year. Obviously, you have to compete with a lot of really good players, but I think that Indiana's defense is going to be strong enough. I think McFadden has the best chance. He's good in pass defense. He obviously has a nose for the football. He led the Big Ten in sacks a season ago. If he can put up those kind of numbers again this season, I mean, he was one of the top tacklers. I think he had double-digit tackles for loss. He had 6 sacks, which led the Big Ten, and I think he had 2 interceptions last season. So if he's able to replicate some of that and be on a really good Indiana team and a really good Indiana defense, I think he's got a great chance to be the linebacker of the year. I like Tywan Mullen and Jalen Williams too, but there's so many good defensive backs in the Big Ten that's a tougher award to win, in my opinion.
There's so many good defensive backs on Indiana's team. Alone.
Yeah, they're fighting with themselves, really.
It's hard to stand out. I mean, they had 16, 17 interceptions last year.
Yeah.
It's hard to stand out. Is even though that Tywan Mullen will play in the NFL on Sundays, it's hard to stand out in this group. That's exactly what I was going to say. Although we know that Tywan Mullen does stand out, you've got some that secondary is loaded, man. They may have the best secondary in the Big Ten and one of the best in the country.
Right. Well, and this kind of goes back to the argument in 2000. I think it was 19 when Jeff Okudah at Ohio State. He was probably the best defensive back in the Big Ten, but he didn't win. He got beat by Antoine Winfield Jr. Now, I mean, either way you could go. You can't make a wrong decision there. But the point being is that Antoine Winfield Jr. had much better numbers because Minnesota's secondary was not quite as good. When you have a secondary with Ohio State where you have Jeff Okudah, Damon Arnett, Sean Wade, those guys, it's hard to stand out because everybody's so good. I mean, so it's a tough award to win. And you're not always going to be able to get 8 interceptions because if you're a really good corner or really good, guys are going to throw the ball your direction. So that's part of it too. If you can lock down guys, you may not have the kind of numbers because they're just not throwing the football your direction. So it's a tough award. That's why I like McFadden for the linebacker of the year. But those two guys I mentioned, you can throw Reese Taylor into that mix too. Marcelino Ball-McCreary, that's another. He's coming back from injury. There's so many good guys in that secondary. I mean, Indiana's going to have one of the best back sevens in the Big Ten this year.
And they're planning on using it that way. So your bold predictions, what are they?
Well, another one is, and we'll get this one out of the way. I did write down that I thought that Indiana would be closer to 3-3 when they played Ohio State than they would be 6-0. Now that's not a predict. I mean, it's a prediction. Nobody cares if I, give the record out or whatever, but you look at that schedule, you have to play a ranked Iowa team. You have to play a ranked Cincinnati team. You have to play a ranked Penn State team. I think the very real scenario is 4-2, maybe 5-1. But let's put this together. I would not be surprised if Indiana, after the Ohio State game, is 4-3 and then finishes out 9-3. That back half of that schedule is so much easier. You have Michigan, you have Purdue, you have Maryland, you have Rutgers, and I can't remember one other team, Minnesota. So, and Minnesota's going to be good too. So I don't think that Indiana is going to be undefeated going into that game. I think they'll at best be 5-1 because I think Penn State's got that game's going to have they're out for revenge. There's also so many other factors. Indiana's got to play these games. They got to go to Iowa. They have to go to Penn State. They have to play in front of a crowd, which they, even before the pandemic, they've played in front of crowds. But, it's really different when you're Indiana of old and nobody really paid much attention to you as to now when you have a target on your back and people are going to be amped up for that game because you were all over. People want to beat you now. You were the Cinderella story of college football. So, people are going to start to take that game a lot more seriously. So I think there's a ton of pressure. I still think Indiana is really good. I still think they'll win 8 or 9 games in the regular season. I think that people are putting a make or break season on whether or not they're undefeated playing Ohio State, and I don't think that's the case. And by the way, I still think they can beat Ohio State.
I don't think that they're going to be undefeated when they get to Ohio State. I think they could be. But
I
see the scenario of 5-1. I see them winning all their other games. Now, can they lose at Iowa? Well, hell yeah. It's a tough place to play against a good program. Can they lose to Cincinnati? Yeah, they're a top 10 team.
Correct.
And of course, you go to Penn State. That's an impossible chore on paper.
Right.
But I think they can win that game because they damn near won it 2 years ago.
They did.
But I think that they go to Iowa and win. I think that if they're 5-1 coming up against Ohio State, they're going to be pretty happy. Of course, they'd be happier if they were 6-0, but I think that's going to be 5-1. And I think that Ohio State game is going to be a thriller. I don't know what does Ohio State have at quarterback?
A really good player. It doesn't matter who they have.
Well, we know that. Last year we knew exactly what they had.
Right.
We knew they had Justin Fields coming back from another year. So now we know that they've got good players, but it's somebody that we haven't seen play.
Well, here's the comparison I would make. So C.J. Stroud has separated himself, is what Ryan Day has said. So he's probably going to be their starter. So two things I'd like to point out here. Number one is that Ryan Day has coached two first-year starters, Dwayne Haskins in 2018 and Justin Fields in 2019. Both were Big Ten Offensive Player of the Year. Both were Heisman Trophy finalists in their first year as a starter. So that tells me Ryan Day knows how to develop talent. The other thing about this is I get the vibe kind of that 2014 Ohio State team. Not to say that they're going to make a college football playoff run, but they had Braxton Miller started the year at quarterback. He got injured. JT Barrett then played all 12 games of the regular season. He got hurt in the final against Michigan, and then they had to bring in Cardell Jones to play. It did not matter. Their talent at wide receiver and their talent on the offensive line was so good. You and I could have probably played quarterback and just heaved the ball up, and one of those guys was going to come down with it 9 times out of 10. They have that kind of talent at wide receiver with Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Julian Fleming, Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka. I mean, I could go on and on. So I think that the quarterback situation is going to be overblown because they just have so much talent at wide receiver that I don't think it really matters. As long as the guy doesn't throw it to the defense every time, I think Ohio State's quarterback play is going to be fine.
And Indiana did intercept him,
Justin
Fields last year. How many times did they pick him off last year?
3 or 4.
Yeah, three times, I think. Yeah, so it's going to be just an interesting season. Looking forward to it, but can't get past the first game. It's going to be interesting to watch that. I made a comment on Twitter on Louisville last night, something about their uniforms. I'm like, is Louisville's biggest concern their uniforms? Oh man, that's just set off a blaze. Oh, an IU fan. I'm like, first of all, I'm not doing this as a fan. I'm just making a comment. But right. I'm like, if this is firing them up that much, I'm like, they must have much bigger problems than their uniforms. But it cracks me up. But
you have to know that if you're going to call another team out, then you obviously are a fan of another team, and that's just the way Twitter works nowadays. Obviously, you got to be some sort of homer.
Yeah, you're not allowed to make a comment about them. But Idaho comes in, of course, and then Cincinnati. I don't know how good Cincinnati really is.
I don't either.
We know how good Cincinnati really is because they're not really challenged that often. And anybody can gear up if you got a big game, well, everybody can get geared up for that game. But when you're playing at Iowa, and then you've got Cincinnati, and then you've got Penn State, then Michigan State, then Ohio State, you don't have to worry about getting geared up for one game. You got to get geared up every week.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, look, Rutgers is better. Minnesota's going to be better. Maryland's going to be better. Like, I say
everybody, you're right. Indiana has a target from those teams, especially.
Exactly.
The Penn States can't lose to them because they want to maintain superiority.
Right.
Minnesota and Maryland and Rutgers are trying to get to where Indiana is. So Indiana's got a target in both directions.
Right, exactly. And you talk about the revenge factor. I mean, we look at Michigan. That's another game they're going to want revenge. Like, I say Indiana's going to win 8 or 9 games, and that's a huge accomplishment because if you do that, you're beating a lot of really good teams on that schedule. I mean, like I said, Rutgers is no longer a team you're going to beat by 24 points regardless. Maryland is not that same team either. So it's very difficult. I could see a scenario. Let me just say this. It's not impossible. I think Indiana is very capable of being 6-0 when that Ohio State game is there. I also think that there's enough talent or enough difficult games on that schedule where they could potentially be 3-3, where your wins are Idaho, Western Kentucky, and Michigan State. I think they're probably closer to that 4-2, 5-1 range. But I mean, it's just such an interesting schedule. And the way it plays out, too, all season long, it's basically like, I hate to define it this way because a lot of tough games are in the Big Ten, but it's like tough game, easy game, tough game. I mean, the way it works out is you're going to get you could see a loss, win, that kind of scenario for the first couple weeks. And then obviously the schedule gets a lot lighter in the back half. But it's still tough. Purdue wants revenge. Minnesota, as you mentioned, they're going to be better. Rutgers and Maryland, they're going to have a target.
To me, it never gets light. You start off with Iowa.
It gets lighter.
Okay, well, let's go after Ohio State. You have Maryland at home. That's lighter. But then you got to go to Michigan.
Yep.
Then you get Rutgers at home. But then you have to host Minnesota, who is they're 2 years away from an 11-win season. And then you have to go to Purdue, a rivalry game, which that game is going to take on a big. The rivalry is really going to start to come back because of things that have happened of late. I talked about that yesterday. You've got Samson James that transferred there, DeMarje Lewis that transferred there, Joe Strickland that chose Purdue. So I'm looking forward to the. Mark Hagan, who, I'm looking forward to the rivalry part returning in all of that. So that makes it fun.
You know what would be awesome too is if the rivalry game. How fun would it be if for a couple seasons in a row we had instead of 5-6 Indiana and 5-6 Purdue, we had 8-4 or 8-3 Purdue and 9-2 Indiana. You know, I think that I thought I had a lot more confidence in Jeff Brom a couple of years ago. We'll see what happens this year. But, man, it would be so fun if these two programs would have, instead of battling for bowl eligibility, let's battle for a 10-win season. Let's be two really good teams and fill those stadiums.
And that brings to mind, we were talking about Scott Frost early and his inability to, in 4 years, to move the Nebraska program. Purdue has not moved really under Jeff. Jeff's a great guy, great coach, great offensive mind. But they haven't really seen much. And they're in the weak western side of the Big Ten. Tom Allen has done what he's done while dealing with Michigan and Michigan State and Ohio State and Penn State. I'm like, dude, the western side, if you can't build up the programs on the western side, that's the easy, quiet place to be.
Yeah. I mean, you could make that. I mean, I don't know. It's tough. Wisconsin, it is easier, but you still have Wisconsin, Iowa. Look at Northwestern, Minnesota. I mean, I don't know. I'm not disagreeing with you, but it's not as easy. Plus, you got to look. It should be. Let me give you this. It should be easier at Nebraska to do that than it should be at Purdue. Because Nebraska should have a better recruiting. I mean, they've had multiple top 25. I think every class that Scott Frost has brought in has been a top 25 class. I'd have to look at the rankings. I'm not sure. But a lot of those guys have left. It should have been easier for Nebraska to reestablish itself near the top of the Big Ten West than it is Purdue. But both divisions are really tough. You just don't have the top heavy. You don't have Ohio State and Penn State is basically what you're boiled down to. Because Michigan and Wisconsin are probably – that's your bold prediction? Well, I've made the prediction that I think that 3 coaches are on the hot seat, Scott Frost, Jim Harbaugh, and Jeff Brom. And I don't know which one, but one of those 3 will not be back next season.
I'd go with Scott Frost right now. Well, but I can tell you who will be back. We will. Right after this, we got to take a break. Great segue, Dustin. Perfect. Back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Whether you're looking for
I spilled coffee all over my damn microwave.
Oh,
Justin.
When I left the last break, I turned my coffee pot off, and I went to zap it really quick, and I spilled the whole freaking cup in there.
Man, Dustin, I don't remember if we talked about this during the podcast on Monday, but I worry because of how well the basketball team, the Indiana basketball team, did down in the Bahamas.
Yep.
If Indiana starts off 1-2, I feel like the football quote unquote fan base is going to check out.
I think there's a very real possibility of that. I hope not.
And I agree. And we can talk about that at a later date, but I was going to mention it during our podcast and I didn't.
Well, had they? Was that over by the time the podcast ran?
Yeah, that ended on Sunday, the day before.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that is a very real thing where it could just go back to being tailgate season, give you something to do before. I hope not. Those guys don't deserve that.
Like I said, they've got to. I think they would have to lose both of them for that to happen. Both of their major ones.
If they're 2-1, I think that'll be okay. Who's the fourth? Who did I say the fourth game is against?
Their fourth after the one after Cincinnati. I think they go down to WKU after that.
Okay, so if they're 2-1, they'll be 3-1 heading into that Penn State game.
Yeah.
I don't know though. It might depend on if even though Cincinnati's listed as a top 10 team, if they don't win, if they beat Iowa and lose to Cincinnati, that might be the bigger. I don't know. It's so interesting.
I hope it doesn't come to that.
Zero impact on the Big Ten. Zero impact on the Big Ten.
I would rather them win the Iowa. Well, I don't know. Because here's the thing. If they win the Iowa game, they're 2-. Here, I need to shut up. We're coming back.
New 2021 Honda Accord LX front-wheel drive lease for just $270 a month. Andy Moore Honda Bloomington, Bloomington's #1 Honda dealer.
Come see us at the all-new Andy Moore Honda, now in Bloomington.
This segment is brought to you by Remax Advanced Realty, Indie Home Pros team by Cheryl Sizemore. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Didn't get to get my coffee. Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio, coming to you here on this Thursday. Dustin Schutte with us, John, the producer, as well. I heard you guys jawing in the break while I was trying to get my coffee made about the Indiana record football potentially going into the Ohio State game. I still think they're going to they'll have one loss, but I think they could have no losses.
Well, it was more so about what the impact would have on the fan base if Indiana starts off the season 1-2 with their only win again being against Idaho.
It would definitely have an impact because perception is reality, man. People see what they think, and they'll be, "Oh, it's the same old Indiana."
Yeah, exactly. So this was the debate that we were having too. Which game in your eyes, Jim, is more important? If I told you no matter what, Indiana's going 2-1 in that 3-game stretch to start the season, who would you rather have lost to, Iowa or Cincinnati?
Well, Iowa counts in the Big Ten standings, and Cincinnati does not. So that
Correct.
does not hurt them. Plus, Cincinnati is going to be a top 10 team.
Right.
So perceptually, visually, it looks better to lose to a top 10 team. It's hard to me to answer because I don't want to lose. I don't ever want to lose anything. So it's hard for me to ever pick something to lose. But I'd have to say Cincinnati just because of the ancillary things that go along with that.
Well, and I would say the exact same thing, because you look at, again, I'm going to use Northwestern as the example here, but there was a year where Northwestern, I think it was the same season, they lost to like Duke and Akron, and still ended up winning the Big Ten West. If I remember correctly, back in 2018, they lost 2 of their 3 non-conference games, if I remember right, and still won the division. So that, to me, even though it's Cincinnati, even though it's a group of 5, everybody would say, oh, they lost to a group of 5. Yeah, they're top 10, but they're a group of 5. We should win that game. I would rather have losses to out-of-conference opponents if I'm a fan, as opposed to a conference team. I'd rather beat it, Iowa, get off to a 1-0 start in the Big Ten, and then control your destiny.
Absolutely. I agree with that. You just got to win them all and don't worry about it.
Ross, very good point.
Ross says an 0-2 or 1-2 start plus COVID could be a derailment of all the momentum built. Yeah, now add in COVID to that. That's true.
That's true.
I didn't think of that.
Very good point.
So even though we were coming off a season where fans were not allowed, you'd hope that they would be thinking of just waiting to get in there. But Indiana's not exactly Ohio State and these places where these gigantic fan bases are. Indiana's trying to build that. So that, I think it would hurt it in that regard more than anything. So
that's a good point. And especially because some of these schools, Wisconsin and Ohio State, I know off the top of my head, are already 2 that have implemented some sort of mask mandate at the stadium. I don't know. Is that going to be the same at Indiana?
Oh, that's already instituted. Monroe County itself already has a mask mandate going. So yeah, that's there. Plus, you have Indiana being a school that has required students to get vaccinated, that has passed laws. I don't know how is that going to carry over to the stadiums? Are you going to have to be vaccinated to come in?
I have said no, and this is one big reason why, is because
how can you demand that on all the students and faculty members and employees, but then let in 50,000 people?
Correct.
That are not.
Correct. But the last thing Indiana wants to do, and a lot of these schools want to do, is piss off a donor. After all the money that you lost last year, they're going to stay. I think they're going to stay very neutral on the vaccination side because of donors. If for whatever reason they say you have to be vaccinated, and you have some guy or woman or big time donor company, whatever, and says you can't come in unless you have the vaccine, and that's a big time donor situation. These schools, even though they were able to recoup some of those lost dollars, they still lost a ton of money. They don't want to lose any more donor. And so that's why I think, I'm not saying it's impossible, but I don't believe that they'll implement that sort of policy, even though it's a double standard, money talks. And I just don't think they want to run that risk of pissing off the wrong person and losing $1 million donor, or, whatever the case might be.
Well, not only that, it's money that they need to recoup. All these schools. The money that they lost last year, they need these fans in the stands. They need to sell that popcorn. They need to sell those Cokes. They need to sell those beers. They need to sell the merchandise.
Then they need butts in the bleachers.
I wonder if there's going to be a players merchandise area.
Oh, I'm sure there will be. I know already some schools have done the, putting the names on the back of the jerseys. But what I don't know is, here's what I don't know, because you go to a team store. Let's just use the Pacers as an example. You walk into the Pacers team store, there's every player on the wall. Are you going to be able to do that with a college football team? Because you have 120 guys.
Yeah, you just ask for the one you want, and they make it.
Is that how that's going to? I legitimately don't know.
It takes 10 seconds. If you're doing that little press thing where you press the names on the backs of the jerseys.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
You have all the jerseys in stacks. Hey, give me number 9. Boom. Penix. Ball. or McCree Ball, whatever the name is, you can press those names on. Now, some of the big names they will have hanging up. They'll have a 9 hanging with a Penix on the back, or a 3 with Freifogel on it,
right,
and whatnot. But usually, anyone you want Sion Fogel and Tatoa, and just good luck with that one. That may cost you a few extra bucks to get his name on a jersey.
you have to go buy more letters. Yeah,
maybe sew an extra jersey beside it, or just get CO on the back. But yeah, so those and so that brings up opportunities for players to sell their jerseys and things like that. Lots of questions, lots of things going on. So
that's the best part of, to me, that's the easiest thing and the best part of the NIL. And we've talked about a lot of different aspects of this, and teams getting team-wide deals and all that stuff. But this is one area where I think it's okay. Like if a kid wants Michael Penix jersey, why not split the cost, whatever the percentage is, 50-50, and Michael Penix makes $50 off that jersey, or Ty Freifogel or Tywan Mullen or Jalen Williams, whoever it might be. I don't see the harm in that. I like
Here's
that
the deal.
aspect of name, image, and likeness.
This goes back to Adidas. Adidas has control over these uniforms, I think.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that Indiana has control over those uniforms, because these are Adidas uniforms. Adidas has the agreement with Indiana. They could go out and buy their own Adidas uniforms and put his name on it and sell them as himself. But it's all kinds of, there's just licensing issues with Adidas and Indiana. But yeah, it's not to say that it can't be done. But I don't think they're going to make near the amount of money by doing it that way. They would be better off doing it on their own.
Well, it's probably not 50-50. That's why you've seen so many kids, or student athletes, promote their own T-shirts, their own brand logo, or their name, or some sort of image, or whatever the case might be. I'm sure that's the case, but the licensing thing is tricky. But I know that Ohio State has been able to do it, and so what happens is basically if Ohio State gave their student athletes the ability to use the school brand, the school logo, all the Ohio State logos and mascots. So that allows them to put the names on the jerseys and then profit off that. Like I said, I don't know. I use 50-50 because it's easier to do the math in my head. It might be 20-80 or 40-60.
The Ohio State thing, because I want to be clear on it, because I've talked about that to other people. They're allowing their athletes, they're giving them permission to use the logo without anything back. Is that true? Or is Ohio getting a cut of that?
I can't imagine, as you mentioned, these companies, I can't imagine that it would be, if I sell a jersey, if I sell a Michael Penix, or let's say an Ohio State, if I sell a Chris Olave jersey for $100, I can't imagine that Adidas and Ohio State aren't getting some sort of
But what if it's not an Adidas? What if it's just a crimson colored jersey?
I'm guessing if it's got the Ohio State logo and independent, and it's not through another, I'm guessing that student athlete would keep most of that money or all of it.
What would stop Michael Penix from selling a crimson colored jersey with a 9 on it and Penix on the back?
Nothing.
That's what I think. Minus the logo, which is very important. Don't get me wrong. The branding is important. That IU Triton, the Ohio State logo, the yellow M, you recognize those.
Right.
The O with the Buckeye, you know exactly who that is. I could look at so many just single letters, the N for Nebraska, Illinois' I, these things are just recognizable. And that's why they protect them,
right,
and have value to them. But they've gotten away with using them so long and using these players to sell that merchandise that now it's time for it to go the other way. Indiana has been very protective of its logo, and I have not heard anything about allowing its athletes to use its logo up till now.
I haven't either, and I didn't know what the case was. Like I said, I've only heard a few schools. I know Ohio State was one. I'm not even going to speculate because I don't remember what the other schools were. But Michigan I know because I know they have jersey deals in place with one of the local shops in Ann Arbor, one of the popular shops among the college students and I think fans and stuff. So it's possible to get done, but again, Michigan's dealing with Air Jordan brand. Ohio State's dealing with Nike. I don't know the situation with Adidas. The contracts are probably written very differently. I have no idea what the specifics of those would be, but it is doable. But like I said, this is why those kids are coming up. Graham Mertz at Wisconsin is a perfect example. Cam Taylor-Britt at Nebraska, another good example. Those guys have their own brand. They're selling hats, T-shirts, socks, shoes, whatever have you on with their logo on it, because I'm sure it's easier than trying to go through the tax situation, the percentages of what you would get. Because if you sell if you sell an authentic Michigan jersey for $100, I'm guessing the player is not getting all $100 of that. Now they'll get a percentage, but I can't imagine that Air Jordan and Michigan isn't going to see at least some sort of cut of that.
I would say substantially most of it.
I would think so too, but I don't know.
I would say the players get the least amount. They're going to take out cost of the this cost and that cost and production cost and shipping cost and blah 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 blah. That's why it's going to be. It will behoove them to do their own deals.
Right.
It's not going to help them to go through the schools, and that's why I don't think you're going to see very many people going through the schools. But that's going to hurt.
Well,
I think the schools are going to lose some money there.
But the other part of it is, though, let's say Michael Penix let's say Indiana gets off to a 6-0 start. Michael Penix is in the Heisman Trophy race, and those things are flying off the shelves at IU. And let's say that Indiana does grant him the permission. They're not going to send him a check every jersey sale, but he might be able to rake in $5,000 if there's been 500 Michael Penix jersey sales or 1,000 Michael Penix jersey sales. That's a nice chunk of change because it's flying off the shelves. I mean, if you're just selling 5 or 6 jerseys, yeah, not great. But if you sell a substantial amount and you get off to a great season, you can make some coin off that.
And here's a bold prediction for you. 85 scholarship players on football?
Yep.
12 on basketball or 13? I will guarantee you the 13 basketball players at Indiana's sales will beat the 85 for football.
Are you talking totality? Like all the okay. I'm not going
to any kind of NIL stuff. Deal,
so you're
sales,
saying
whatever.
Yeah, you're saying basketball jersey sales will outnumber football jersey sales.
I'm saying basketball related to anything. I don't care if it's a mug.
No, I agree with you. I'm not going to disagree with that.
Serious.
Yeah,
those 13 players, anything that they do will generate more total income than the 85 football players at least at Indiana.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with that. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know how many schools
and that's
that would
just
be
a
the
disparity.
Case.
Not many at all.
I'm thinking Indiana and
Duke,
Purdue, maybe
North Carolina,
Duke, North Carolina. Yep. I was thinking Big Ten wise, but I was thinking Purdue and Indiana probably in the Big Ten. I would think that would be the case for those two schools. But outside of that,
I don't know. No, Purdue, I don't know. I don't think so. Purdue doesn't have this great basketball following. Indiana we talked earlier about national brands. Indiana is still a national basketball brand. Purdue, it has never been a national basketball brand and will never be a national basketball brand.
Okay.
I know that they've won 9 straight games over Indiana right now. Yeah, I know that. But it doesn't matter. Indiana is still a basketball brand and Purdue is not.
Correct. I agree with you. Indiana is a national brand. I'm not disagreeing with that, but I'm saying
I know.
I'm saying the fans I think there's more of a Purdue basketball following, and especially the last decade of Purdue football has sucked. Let's just put that out there. Like they've been to 3 bowl games in the last 10 years, maybe even 12 years.
They had some tradition.
I think I think the jersey. I'm just saying. I think that Purdue's basketball jersey sales would outnumber the football jersey sales. I'm not comparing it to Indiana. Indiana would destroy Purdue's basketball jersey sales. I'm just saying that
it would have today, but if you go back, Jim Everett, Drew Brees, I think that would have been reversed. I don't think that will ever. Well, I know it would never. Well, I can't say never, but that would not be the case in backwards in time. Who knows what the future holds, but
I'd agree with that.
Going backwards, yeah. I mean, Antoine Randall is one you could think of that would have gotten up there a little bit, but Anthony Thompson, of course, but as a whole, never. They're not going to. Man, basketball is just still the king, and that's okay. But just an observation. We got to take a break. Hey, we'll be back with more Indiana Sports Beat Radio right after this.
We'll be right back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington.
Hey, Hoosier fans.
Oh boy. Got a big weekend planned, John.
You do?
Oh yeah.
What are you doing?
We're going up to Preacher's Rock in Dahlonega, Georgia tomorrow. My brother's in town.
Okay.
Who's we?
My brother came up. We played golf yesterday. We're going to Dahlonega tomorrow.
He was up here for a week and didn't play golf with me.
I got my ass dragged all over the state of Indiana. And then we got Pigs and Peaches Festival.
Whoa, stop. Did you say pigs and pizza?
Pigs and Peaches.
Pigs and peaches.
Peaches, yep, like Georgia the Peach State.
Pigs and pizzas doesn't sound half bad either.
It doesn't. It's barbecue, and it's then a lot of it. They say peach desserts, but it's either peach pie or peach cobbler. I'm not a big peach guy though, so I just eat the barbecue.
Do people in Georgia really take pride in their peaches, or is it not really that big of a deal?
So where I live, no, but I kind of live in it's a growing city. So there's not a lot of.
Live in the middle of nowhere.
I live in the middle of nowhere.
I'm kidding.
Oh, but I'm guessing like in the country, it would probably be similar to like saying somebody in Indianapolis. Do they take pride in corn? Not really, because it's Indianapolis. But if you go out to
Indiana's not known for corn.
That's more like Wisconsin.
When I was driving
like
through
Iowa.
When I was driving through the state of Indiana, let me tell you, I was like, this is more corn than I care to see ever again.
Now, I-65 north or south, whichever. That's pretty boring, I will say.
As soon as you get above Indianapolis, it's flat because that's where the Ice Age came down and flat. But from like Bloomington southern Indiana is very hilly. And
it is. I love driving through Kentucky this time of year.
All right, here we go.
Steaks and seafood. Sam's Ale House in Carmel and on 86th Street in Indy have a long list of craft beers and all of the right foods to go with. Plan a day on the links at Eagle Point in Bloomington, then stay for dinner at Sam's Clubhouse. Sam's Restaurants, professionals in the art of food and drink. This segment is brought to you by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Now back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios for more Indiana Sports Beat Radio with Jim Coyle, presented by Andy Moore Honda of Bloomington. Here's Jim Coyle.
Welcome back, Indiana Sports Beat Radio here on this Thursday. Dustin Schutte with me as always. I'm looking at the scramble I'm playing in again tomorrow. The Metropolitan Indianapolis Board of Realtors. That's going to be at the links at Heartland Golf Course Crossing. It's a links course, which is good because it's wide open, but there are a ton of bunkers I've heard. So I think it's just going to be a grip and rip scenario for me, baby. hope and pray wherever it lands.
I'll say that I got a tip about my driver the other day, and I'm not hitting the ball as
to put it away.
You know, well, that was the second. If I couldn't get tip 1 to work, tip 2 was to put it away. I'll tell you what, I wasn't getting great distance on it, but I was hitting it down the fairway, baby.
Then what? That's old man golf. That's old man golf. What do you want? That's perfect. Those guys are
I shot
those guys.
You know what? I shot a 92, so I'm not complaining. Now I want to get below. I want to be consistently below 90. Play bogey golf. I'm happy with bogey golf, but basically just a little bit more bend in my knees, and I hit it straight. I was hitting it around 225, 250, not super distance, but straight. And then you get your. I had a really good front nine. I had a point where I hit 4 or 5 straight pars or bogeys, and we'll leave the rest. Leave the rest to the imagination as to how bad I did, but.
Well, I'll be looking forward to being at the links at Heartland Crossing Golf Course tomorrow. It's a noon shotgun start. Got lunch at 11, registration at 11. I should have put up Cheryl Sizemore information, although she's not the one that's handling this. But there you go. John's got it up there. You got the contact there at the bottom, the URL. You can hit on that. Anybody that wants it, just reach out and we'll get the information to you. But that's tomorrow. I will be there. Bob Kravitz will be there. It'll be fun. What's the rest of your week look like?
Oh man, it's going to be fun. A little bit of work and play. I'm continuing to do a series on 5 bold predictions, basically for every Big Ten team on the Saturday Tradition side, and then we'll do a deep dive into the Nebraska-Illinois game next week, and that'll be fun because it's going to have major implications for both the Huskers and the Fighting Illini. And then on the play side, heading up to Dahlonega, Georgia, doing some hiking tomorrow. Going to stop at maybe some of the listeners are Ashley McBride fans, big country music star. She wrote a song called "A Little Dive Bar in Dahlonega," based on a kind of a juke joint in up there. So we're going to hit that, stop there. And then we got a big Pigs and Peaches festival. So we got 100 yards out my back door, just a giant festival of barbecue and dessert and beer and all you could ever want. And so I'll be taking part in that on Friday and Saturday too.
I love just hearing the Pigs and Peaches festival. That's just a great name.
It's amazing.
I love that. It is awesome.
Did you ever watch? So part of it is the biggest part is everybody. You can go around and it's kind of like a taste festival, right? Like you bring your cash or you get your tickets and then you can sample different things. But there's another part where there's an actual competition, and I don't know if anybody watched Barbecue Pit Masters on Destination America, but Myron Mixon, if anybody's heard of that name, he's been up here and he's won that contest a few times. So it's a big deal up here.
No, but it sounds good. We are less than a week away from the commitment announcement of Jalen Hood-Schifino, and seems to be looking positive for Indiana. I think that's going to go in that direction. Noah Clowney has now also made his final 5 or whatever. Indiana is in that. If Indiana can land both those guys, wow, you talk about a cap to the recruiting. That would be a nice pair for Mike Woodson, and just continue to set off what he's doing with the basketball program. Tamar Bates was the first great get. He's played well. He's been given opportunities, and he's taken advantage of those opportunities. He's played well. He's developing, and I think that these guys are seeing that. They're hearing Mike Woodson talk. They're hearing his no BS type of the atmosphere that he's around, that people are getting opportunities to play, that he's actually implementing a defense that not only is good, but it is working, and that these guys have come together quickly. And they're winning. So lots of positive trends. Well, these kids see this stuff. So we'll see how well that works out for Indiana or not, but it's trending in a positive direction right now.
It has been for a while, and I think the most important thing, in my opinion, and you might have a different opinion on this, but getting so many of those guys who entered the transfer portal to return to Indiana, I think was the first sign that Mike Woodson, and we can talk about maybe the roster wasn't where it needed to be in terms of Indiana being of national prominence. I still think it was a roster that was capable of finishing in the top 5 of the Big Ten on a yearly basis had they been developed. Which they clearly weren't. But having those guys come back and say, you know what, we've bought into Mike Woodson. We were going to go somewhere else. We had this major change. We weren't winning. We believe so much in this guy that he can develop us, that he can turn us into a winning program, that we're going to stick around. I think that sends a message to the guys like Miller Kopp, to some of these Xavier Johnson, getting those guys from the transfer portal, getting some of these other recruits. I think that sent a huge message. And now it's kind of like the effect Tom Allen had, right? Like Tom Allen's a great recruiter, but he also has great players who are doing the recruiting for him. I think you're starting to probably see that on the basketball side as well.
Oh, absolutely. But you also you have a staff that is just much bigger in stature.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You've got Mike Woodson. You've got Dane Fife. A couple of assistants who were with them previously.
Thad Mott is in the building.
But Thad Mott is in the house. And I'm saying all these names and the banners and the tradition and someone who is looking to get it back to that. And all of that's starting to kind of seemingly come together. And I think that the recruits see that. And again, we'll see how that works out with Jalen Hunchafino. He looks like it's going to be an Indiana lean, but don't know. Noah Clowney in the final list, but we'll see. Just let him make the decision. I don't get all jacked up about it. It just, there's no reason for me to. I'm just reporting on it. The fans get wrapped up in it, but I think that man, just fans should just sit back and relax. It's going to be good. It's going to be fine.
Right.
Things are going exactly how they need to go.
You know what's interesting? This is a kind of a sidebar. Have you ever noticed that it seems like when it comes to basketball,
every time I hear somebody say that, not to interrupt you, I think of what was the old guy on 60 Minutes, Andy. He's no longer on there because he's passed away, but he was always on the end of 60 Minutes, and he'd have like a little 5 minute. Have you ever noticed that every time you're going in there, there's a bin? Have you ever noticed that there's always lint in your belly button?
I have never. I don't know if I never watched that show or never heard of that guy. I've never heard of
Andy
that.
Rooney.
Andy Rooney. I have heard that name. Okay. I don't.
Have you ever noticed Andy? I guarantee if you Google Andy Rooney, have you noticed? I don't know. I will do it myself, but please continue.
I was just going to say, when it comes to basketball, it's actually a fairly decent segue, but I'm just saying when it comes to basketball recruiting and football recruiting, like, basketball, there seems to be so fewer commits and decommits and flips and whatnot, as opposed to football, where a kid can commit in January one year, and then by April he's changed his mind, and then by September he's changed his mind again. It's very interesting to me the fact that with basketball players, it's not 100% locked down, but for the most part, when you commit, those kids are committed. Where in football, a commitment, you're still kind of sweating it out until National Signing Day. I don't know why that is.
That's a good question.
It's just always been interesting to me, but I cannot put my finger as to why.
Good question. To see what we get some answers on the hotline. Andy Rooney. Yes, Jennifer, that's exactly who I was trying to think of. But yeah, have you ever noticed? But every time I hear someone say that, that pops into my head. But yeah, I don't know. You're right. I think it's different types of relationships because they're tighter. Yeah, like I said, you've got 13 guys.
Yeah, that's a good
scholarship rather than 85. And while I know you can try to build relationships, the head coach can't build that kind of relationship with 85 guys, I wouldn't think.
Right.
I mean, I know that they try and they have a relationship with all of them, but I don't know that you can have the same relationship with 85 guys that you can with 13.
Right. And plus you're
probably because you're with those particular 13
way more because you're with them all the time. In football, you're with this group, you're with this group, you're with this group. It moves around so much. There's not as much time. So I don't know.
And a good recruiting class in basketball usually is, in the neighborhood of what, 3 to 5 players. And so you're probably talking to 50 and trying to get those 3 to 5. Whereas in football, you're probably talking to 450, 500 kids at least, because you're trying to get 25 commitments. And so it's always been interesting to me, but that's probably the biggest thing is the fact that you can have more personal relationships because you're not having to recruit 500 different kids. You're recruiting a tenth of that.
About the problems people have falling asleep and staying asleep. I keep reading about the problems people have falling asleep and staying asleep nights. An organization called the National Sleep Foundation did a study, and it says that the economy is making people sleepless. I mean,
that's the kind of things Andy Rooney would deliver to you. Some little tidbits at the end of 60 Minutes each Sunday night back in the day. But he would always start out, have you ever noticed? That's just something ingrained in my brain from growing up, I think. But
that was a pretty good impression by you too.
Ross said, hated to see the tweet from Coach Woodson this morning about a death while in the Bahamas. Yeah, I did not see that. So I'll have to look that up, John. What was that about? But to pull that up, I did not see that either myself. If anyone has information on that, I did not see that either. And I hope it was not related to the Indiana family in any way. Somebody has to pull that up, John. I'm too busy trying to do something else, or Ross sent it to us.
I'm taking a look. I'll let you know if I find anything.
But yeah, I'm not sure what that's about. We'll find that out. But Michael Penix, was it yesterday? Michael Penix spoke to the media. You can go to Indiana Rivals, and speaking of Rivals, dude, they have the most unbelievable. For all of you guys listening now, I would be so disappointed if you don't get a subscription to Rivals now. It's 80% off for the year. It's $22 for the whole year. That's like $1.68 a month. $1.68 a month for the year. Premium subscription. That means you get the VIP stuff, all the VIP basketball, VIP football, everything in there. How do you pass that deal up? Go to thehoosier.com and get taken care of. But man,
you can't even get a cup of coffee for that.
Huh? No. Straight black coffee from a dive bar. You can't hardly get it for that.
Right.
You can't even get a pack of sugar from Starbucks for that.
You can't get a sweet and low packet.
Exactly. So this weekend coming up, where are you focusing on?
Like I said, my 5 bold predictions. I've already done Indiana. We've got right now Ohio State
prediction that of all the ones that you have made thus far. What do you think is the boldest that you think is a reality or a potential reality?
I do think so. I'll throw another one out there. Indiana establishes a rushing attack. I don't think the Hoosiers in Tom Allen's tenure in his 4 seasons, I don't believe the Hoosiers have ranked better than 9th in the Big Ten in rushing offense.
I've said this often. The rushing attack has not hurt Indiana, but it has done nothing to help them.
I think with Stephen Carr, Tim Baldwin Jr., David Ellis, and the addition of Dylan McCullough as the running backs coach, I think in better offensive line play, I do think Indiana's I think they'll finish in the top 4 in the rushing attack this year. I think that's going to be a real strength for them.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So this is the statement from Mike Woodson. He says, on behalf of the Indiana basketball program, I would like to express our deepest condolences to the family of Robert Bob Worrell on his untimely passing while joining us last week in the Bahamas. Hoosier Nation, please offer up your thoughts and prayers to his family, friends, and loved ones during this difficult time.
Yeah, I'll have to look that up, but hate to see that, and our thoughts and condolences out to that family as well. But that's going to pretty much wrap it up for us today, Dustin. I can't believe it flew by as always. Whenever you're on, we appreciate it. Wish you're on every day. It's fun. We have a blast. Yeah, when are you moving up here, FYI?
Somebody asked that earlier. We're still waiting. We're still waiting.
It's still waiting.
Hey, we'll be back to do it all again tomorrow. See what basketball news we've got to talk about. Alec Lasley will join us, and we've got plenty more. Looking forward to it. I hope you guys go out and have a great day. Thanks to Matt Taylor. Thanks to Chris Denari, of course, and a big thanks to Dustin Schutte from Saturday Tradition. Make sure you give him a follow if you don't. For Big Ten coverage, John, the producer. And most importantly, thanks to you guys. Interested in golf? Look up the golf information I just gave you about the Metro Indianapolis Board of Realtors that I will be playing in tomorrow. But until then, till tomorrow, I'm Jim Coyle. Go out and do something nice for somebody. And until then, we'll see you on the radio.